Hello, my name's Richard and I'm the Clinical Programmes Lead for Jenx and Giraffe. This is the third video in a series of videos around postural management through an occupational lens. So some of the aims of this new video series are why functional seating and postural management is important for participation and engagement, whether a lack of opportunity can limit or hinder children's development. We'll look at how occupational performance is related to postural management, and taking a holistic and client-centred approach can enable independence, function and engagement. We'll also take a look at the ICF framework and also the social model of disability. So in this video, we're going to focus more on occupational models. So in particular, we're going to be taking a look at the Canadian model of occupational performance and engagement. So what we hope to get out of today's video is first of all taking a look at what the Canadian model of occupational performance and engagement is, why it's different from other models, and how we can use it to look at a person as a whole. We'll also look at how we can use that information to better inform postural interventions and the equipment that we decide to use. We'll look at also two relating case studies using tricycles, so Brady and Henry's stories. We'll take a look at that. We'll look at how correct postural management can create opportunities for inclusion, engagement and participation, and how these case studies also relate to the ICF and the F words. So the Canadian model of occupational performance and engagement, this is a view of how it might look. So it's breaking a person down into different subsections, into three different domains. So we look at the person as the centre, with, you'll notice a big circle in the middle, spirituality, which we'll get on into in a second. Also looks at a person's occupation, so the things that they do in their lives, and the environment that they do that within. So if we start breaking this all down so it makes a bit more sense, if we take a look first of all at the term spirituality, which you'll notice was at the centre of the person. So that is the one thing within this model that really differentiates it from any other occupational model that is kind of available. So spirituality doesn't necessarily mean religion, as a lot of people interpret that to mean. It can relate to religion, but it's basically the core values of that person. It's the essence of self, it's often referred to as. So what that person lives to in regards to their moral code, or how they live their lives in terms of fundamental being, and also what's important to them at the centre. Like I mentioned, this could be through religion, but it could be through a whole kind of ream of things of how we like to live our lives day to day, or the code that we live by. So like I mentioned, it's the first framework that acknowledges that as the core of a person in terms of human occupation. And this is often expressed as well, the spirituality side of things, in how we actually engage and perform our own occupations as well. So I'm just going to mention as well at this point, in terms of the Canadian model of occupational performance and engagement, or CMOPE, there is an outcome measure that goes along with this model called the COPN, and this can actually only be used for people over the ages of 8 years old, or with the cognitive ability of someone that is over 8 years old. So I just want to point out at this stage that we're using this model as a way to break someone down so that we can understand them better, not so much that we're using that particular outcome measure. Okie dokie. So if we look at the person side of things further, so we have the spirituality in the middle, and then on the 3 points of the triangle we have cognitive, so that means how we think, how our ability to think and communicate. Affective, so that's to do with our feelings of the emotions that we go through day to day. And the physical side of things, so the doing, so the more physical parts of our body, and how we're able to actually do the occupations that we want and need to do. So if anything within this realm, anything in this three subsections of cognitive, affective, or physical. If there's any impairments within this, we need to understand what they are and how they affect someone's ability to engage in occupations or in the activities that they need or want to do. And having those kind of three subsections makes it far clearer to see the barriers around those issues. If you look to the next section that covers the circle around the person is our occupations. So in the first video, we kind of defined what occupation was. So just to make it very kind of simple idea of what occupation is the things that we need, want, or are expected to do in life. So again, they've broken this down into three subsections. Self-care being one of them. So all those personal activities of daily living that we need to do, like eating, feeding, toileting, using the bathroom, our gross and fine motor skills, our strength, all of that enabled to look after ourselves. The productivity side, so those kind of relate as well to the things that we need to do in life as well, those kind of purposeful occupations of going to work or going to school, engaging in education, shopping, domestic cleaning, that sort of thing. And then the leisure side of things is more of our meaningful occupations, of what we enjoy to engage in our lives, or what things that maybe our hobbies, socializing, but also this can include what's really important to us and kind of some of our life goals, that sort of thing. As well as is encapsulated within that. And then the third and final section is the environment that we do all of our occupations within. So this can be, again, broken down into the physical environment, so the actual buildings of our home, school, workplace, sports and leisure centres, places of worship. So how that is actually set up physically. Socially as well, so the people that are around us, our environment around us, our family, our friends, teachers, staff, healthcare professionals, people that are kind of assisting with our life in that way. Cultural, so this might be kind of a religious culture or community groups that we're in, can include nationalities and ethnicities as well, of how that differs. And then institutional, so that's kind of the healthcare organisations, work organisations, and the government, and kind of the legislation side of things that we're bound to. So what I didn't mention in the person section, which is the same, the occupation section, which is the same as the environment. So if there are barriers in any of these subsections as well, we can identify them and break them down easier by seeing how it affects the different parts of a person. So in this instance, the physical side of things, if the environment at school isn't set up correctly, it's going to impact how someone can engage in their occupations. So as we can see, we've got that slide again in front of us of how it's all built together. So from kind of finding out and assessing all of these different subsections, we're getting a very good picture of someone and a more holistic approach to an assessment or to the care of this person. And we can find out where the barriers are and what is impacting those barriers and how they all interact with each other. And then on the right side of the slide, you can see how we have overlap with the person, occupation and environment, and where those overlap, that's kind of called the occupational domain, occupational therapy domain, and that's where occupational therapy can happen, when they overlap. So we'll come back to the model and how it can be used when we look at the case studies. But just before we do that, if we think about postural management and how the CMOP can better inform us of that. If we have all of that information and we have got to know the child better, it's going to help to better inform our assessment and also our intervention. So knowing what occupations, for example, the child needs to complete in the day or what they want to complete may direct us in what piece of equipment they're going to require or what kind of accessories they may need, and how we're going to promote that engagement and participation by using this intervention of a piece of equipment. And by managing a child's posture correctly, as the previous series of videos around postural management will kind of inform you further, it can actually help a child engage better because of the way that their body structure is also set up. It also can increase independence in terms of self-care as well. If a child isn't capable of sitting to brush their teeth, perhaps by managing a child's posture, so all they need to think about is one arm, for example, and reaching it to their mouth, they might be able to be more independent in engaging in that self-care of brushing their teeth. But also using this model, we're not just assessing the individual child, we're also assessing everything that's around them, their entire environment. So whether that's the physical environment around them, taking a look at their social and support networks of how to integrate that into their care, and also how to better aid that in independence and engagement. Also thinking as well about the roles of that individual as well. We all have roles in life. Could be in terms of family roles. They might be a son, daughter, siblings. How does that relate to them engaging in their occupations, and also engaging as a family member, and how our interventions can assist with that. Okay, so the first case study that we're going to look at, we're going to meet Harry. So Harry is 8 years old. He loves going to school. He loves playing with his friends and visiting parks with his family. So Harry has hemiplegic cerebral palsy and GMF-CS level 2. He's also deaf and non-verbal. He's got a cochlear implant and uses his iPad as a way of communication with simple language as well to communicate. Harry has weakness through his left side of his body and can tire over long distances when mobilising. So if we take a look at the CMOP as well, we're not going to go through this entirely, but just to give you an idea of how it could be used, we can look at limitations within kind of Harry in terms of engaging in the activity of riding a tricycle, as that's what this case study was around. So if we take a look at the person, physically we understand that he has cerebral palsy and a weakness on his left side, and he tires over long distances. So these are some impairments that we need to be aware of when assessing, and when it helps us to manage also expectations of what to look for, but also being aware not to be limited by that, but just having an awareness of what Harry may need during the assessment. In terms of his cognition, he is definitely non-verbal, so needs to use communication aid. In terms of his occupations, we know that he loves going to school and playing with his friends. It's a very meaningful thing for him to do that, and to go to parks with his family. In terms of his self-care, as I wasn't involved in this case study, I'm not too sure, but that's something that you would go into in terms of how he meets his activities of daily living. And then in terms of his environment, for example, we'd look at school being a big factor. So physically, the school, how it's set up, is there adaptations in place? Is it purpose-built? Is it converted? How we can how's he going to access the playground? What are the barriers preventing him to do this? There's just a few kind of examples of certain things we would be looking at using this model. So as you can see, we can start building up a picture of Harry holistically, and also we're not focusing on his disability, we're focusing on the occupation of riding a tricycle and what he wants to do and how he's going to achieve that. And how his impairments, what the barriers are around that in terms of the school, but also in terms of what he may need to support him to do so. So we're also going to meet Brady as well, who's also was taking part in the this tricycle trial. So He's again 8 years old. He loves playing with his friends at school. He enjoys computer games. So Brady has spastic quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, and a GMF-CS level of 5. He's also non-verbal and uses an iPad to communicate, to aid his communication and understanding. He requires assistance to meet his activities of daily living. He's got weakness and tone throughout his whole body, and uses a manual wheelchair, which the carer requires to assist for all his mobility needs. And he uses a full body posterior support walking frame as well when he's mobilising. So again, we can take a look at the model of the different things that could affect Brady's ability. So again, we understand his physical condition. So having spastic quadriplegia, we know that he's got weakness throughout his whole body, and how that's maybe how it might impair his ability to use a tricycle, and also that he has the label of the GMF-CS level 5, which typically a person with that kind of label wouldn't be able to engage with tricycles, so it may limit his opportunity to do so. But in this case study, that was kind of taken into consideration. The opportunity was still given. In terms of his communication, his cognitive side of things, we know again that he's got the iPad, so he's going to be able to need that to communicate to staff and to other people around him. Similar with his environment in terms of his of where he's going to be using the tricycle at school. So we need to know about the building and the accessibility again. And we know in terms of his occupations what's important to him: playing video games, being with friends. But we also know that he requires full assistance for his ADLs, for example. So again, we're just painting a fuller picture of Brady, rather than just taking a look at what his diagnosis is, what he should and shouldn't be able to do, and just kind of going from there. Okay, so in terms of the actual case studies themselves, just to give you an overview of what was entailed. So like I mentioned, I was not involved in the case study. The children's physiotherapists, alongside a colleague of mine, actually completed the case study. So for the 2 boys, you can see this was what was set up. So for Harry, the Riften adaptive tricycle was used after a full assessment of his needs and the supports that were individualised to him. So this worked alongside Harry's existing therapy routine over a full week period. He had 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intensity cycling 3 to 5 times a week. The intensity was measured through a sports watch as well, and it was aiming between 50 to 70% of Harry's max heart rate. So again, with Brady, he was fully assessed for the equipment and accessories that he would need for a Riften adaptive tricycle. And again, using Brady's existing therapy routine, this one was over a 6-week period, again with a 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intensity of cycling, and it was up to 5 times a week, and the intensity was determined through the therapist's assessment and discretion. So in terms of the outcome measures and what was tested, it was all along the guidance of the UK Chief Medical Officer's Physical Activity Guidelines for Disabled Children and Disabled Young People 2022, as well as the Exercise and Physical Activity Recommendations for People with Cerebral Palsy. So I'm now going to just play you a video of a part way through this case study of Harry and Brady, so you can have a little bit of an understanding of what happened. So it's quite clear to see some of the kind of improvements and some of the effects of this trial. Just to kind of make everybody watching aware that the two boys didn't know each other prior to the commencement of the study. They were in different classrooms, and you can kind of see just how quickly they got on and how they were interacting with each other. It was just quite lovely to watch. So the benefits of that in terms of developing social skills through play. We mentioned kind of the benefits of friendship, especially in the previous video. But it's kind of great to see that development as well through this physical activity. Obviously, gross motor skills developed. So we're going to go on to breaking down exactly kind of what developed in with each of the children. Coordination and balance as well improved, spatial and bodily awareness. Obviously, you can tell that they were both absolutely loving the tricycles and playing with each other, just through, first of all, visually, but also they use their communication aids to kind of relay that back to staff as well. So in terms of kind of the mental health and well-being improvements as well, in terms of the engaging and participating in the occupation of using the tricycle. So Harry, so after 4 weeks using the trike, he was able to get on and off the trike independently. He's able to push off independently, steer independently around the painted playground racetrack, and he also propels the tricycle very fast. So on the start of the 4 weeks, he wasn't able to do this, and this is what he's now able to achieve. His resting heart rate went from 81 beats per minute to 75. His paediatric balance scale improved from 44/56 to 50/56. He's able to pedal and steer completely independently now. So in terms of the kind of the well-being side of things and the engagement side of things, he feels more included as he's able to now cycle with his friends during break time. But also Harry really loves to ride the trike fast, as he loves chasing the staff member around the playground as well. So after Brady's 6 weeks of using the tricycle, he was able to push off and pedal the trike independently, turn the trike independently on wider turning circles, and he also joined cycling groups with his peers at break time. So initially he was really struggling with the independent pedaling and turning, and he's currently working really hard on improving that. But he's improved function so much so that he's now being referred for a powered wheelchair assessment. So, I mean, the impact on his own independence and being able to do that and mobilise himself would just be incredible. So hopefully that is something that Brady's going to be able to head towards. That'd be fantastic. His mum said she's never seen Brady cycle, and in truth, she didn't believe that it would be possible to. He's always happy using his tricycle, and he uses his communication aid daily to ask staff at school to ride his trike. So just to summarise this, the case studies using the kind of the F words from the ICF framework, which again we did go through in quite a bit of detail in the previous video. So if you haven't seen that one, please do take a look. So in terms of his fitness, Harry's fitness especially, we kind of measured that through an improved cardiovascular performance measured by his beats per minute. Having their body structures managed in such a way allowed them to engage with the tricycle. So by managing their posture correctly, the children were able to use the tricycle effectively. They're able to engage in the activity as well, which again allows for independence whilst using the tricycle, and as the studies progressed, they became more and more independent and were able to do more for themselves, as well as engage with their friends in participating in cycling at break times. They're both clearly having lots of fun, which is great, and they both communicated this with their communication aids, but visually having lots of fun. So working in co-production with school staff, family, physiotherapists, they're able to gain better outcomes for the child. So just to summarise this video and the series, so using the Canadian model of occupation and engagement, we can focus on more of a child-centred, holistic practice. So we can understand the child more, relate that to the barriers that are in place more and how they can be broken down in order for the child to engage better in their occupations. So identifying barriers through co-production as well, so not focusing everything on just the child and their disability, but their wider environment, their social environment, family, the people that are also around the child and involved with their care. So we're thinking outside of the biomechanical framework as well. So we're focusing on inclusion, engagement and participation. So focusing less on how something's supposed to be done traditionally, and focusing more on how why it's being done and why it's important, and making sure that it's not necessarily having to be done perfectly, but thinking of more of a functional approach. So we also saw throughout the presentations how correct and appropriate postural management can enhance independence as well. And we related that to the ICF framework and the F words, and how this has kind of been achieved. And finally, just to reiterate those three main aims of postural management that we went through a lot of detail in the previous video series around minimising damage, reducing energy expenditure, and this series, which was mostly focused on the function part of it. So I hope this has been useful, and I hope you can use some of this information going forward, or relating it to your interventions, or assessing a child's needs.